Sometimes I sit back, minds in another world, minds in another world, minds in another world. Sometimes I sit back with a Buddha sack, minds in another world, minds in another world. Think sometimes I sit back, minds in another world, minds in another world, minds in another world. Sometimes I sit back with a Buddha sack, minds in another world, minds in another world.
Yo, fresh off the great babe in the great paper. See you later, neighbor, off the vapor or the paper faded off. Then off 10 blunts at once. I'm bumping that Humpty Hump of Captain Crunch for lunch. Got me swaying like somebody gonna spike the punching. Now it's hard for me to even get my mind to function. Couch got a divot, spacing out, imagining my house be the biggest. That's just me, stuck in a dream state. Every high's new, joints rolled in a clean slate. Sticky ass weed bags, smelling like green grapes. The fade that you paid for it come with a sweet taste. Man, I swear the Buddha be the bombest. Honest, promise you'll get slammed like Onyx. That's why I sit back with that Buddha sack. Mine's in another world, I'm in another world.
Sometimes I sit back, minds in another world, minds in another world, minds in another world. Sometimes I sit back with a Buddha sack, minds in another world, minds in another world. Think sometimes I sit back, minds in another world, minds in another world, minds in another world. Sometimes I sit back with a Buddha sack, minds in another world, minds in another world. Thinking
while I lift my eyelids, real lazy life. Third eyesight, this hell of amazing, right? Lights shine brighter when the lighter gonna ignite the fire that went inside. Admire what's in my mind, elevated innovations. It's where I get it, my inspirations. Red eye, first flight, feel like it's my birthright. Sparkle like a diamond, that's how you know that the herb's tight.
Let me smell it, let me inhale it, see if it burns right.
Cough so hard, my hair permed, then I turn white. Light skinned already, breathing so heavy, nearly pop like confetti. Sweaty then steady, then space bound, I'm jetting. I hope somebody got some munchies, cause when I get back, I'm gonna be hungry. 5 times 5, 25 years, I done whatever the fuck I want in soft years. And I'm right here, even though sometimes my mind needs to unwind. I sit back with the Buddha sack until the time's here.
sometimes I sit back, minds in another world, minds in another world, minds in another world. Sometimes I sit back with a Buddha sack, minds in another world, minds in another world. Think sometimes I sit back, minds in another world, minds in another world, minds in another world. Sometimes I sit back with a Buddha sack, minds in another world, minds in another world. Thinking
been high for years straight, smoking on that good shit. That purple indica sativas, they make me look at life different from another world, mine on a different planet. I'm never on acid, never popping pills. I'm only bagging herbs for my mental being, fleeing to another place, out of space where I face no problemos. Not a couch potato, I smoke and write rhymes on tables. I flame moles, then I get high, then I scrape bowls, and I live life in a peace and heavy ass eyes. Got a song on repeat while I'm packing a pipe. Smoke, eat, sleep, shower, then I'm out for the night. An awkward stoner when I'm flicking the light. And don't be judging my high on the really high note, to the point that I float. And if you tell me I can't swim, then I'm building a boat. And that's word to the law, I'm a blaze till I can't. This a rant, I love this plant, check my mic stance.
sometimes I sit back, minds in another world, minds in another world, minds in another world. Sometimes I sit back with a Buddha sack, minds in another world, minds in another world. Think sometimes I sit back, minds in another world, minds in another world, minds in another world. Sometimes I sit back with a Buddha sack, minds in another world, minds in another world. Thinking sometimes I sit back, minds in another world, minds in another world, minds in another world. Sometimes I sit back with a Buddha sack, minds in another world, minds in another world. Think sometimes I sit back, minds in another world, minds in another world, minds in another world. Sometimes I sit back with a Buddha sack, minds in another world, minds in another world. Thinking